Ready? Sorry.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, good evening and welcome members, officers and those members of the public here at the meeting and those joining us virtually. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Sandra?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Pennington, Councillor Cottle-Hunkin, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is to agree the minutes, first of all, of the 4th of September. We'll run through those page at a time. On page 5, 6, 7, 8. Councillor Hayes?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, on page 6 at the top, public contributions, Mr. Lewis spoke about concerns regarding residential permit options. It would be clearer if it, does that relate to car parking? Please, it's not really clear. Really.
Sorry, which one is it? Can you just repeat that?
It's on 167, the second paragraph.
Right.
Concerns regarding residential permit options. Does that relate to car parking?
Well, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Could it be made a bit clearer? Just add car parking.
Yes, I'm sure
For
that's
the sake of the public. Thank you.
okay. I believe I was on page 8, so page 9, 10, 11, and 12. Opposing from
I'll move those, Chair.
You will. Seconder, Councillor Locke. Yeah. All in favour, please show. And against? And abstentions? These numbers add up then?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Can you hear me? Right, is this my number?
That's better, that's better, that's better.
I'm gonna get blood up close. Okay, the second set of minutes is the extraordinary meeting on the 2nd of October, page 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Want to propose that? Yeah. So. Councillor Inch and Councillor Harding, was it? Yeah. All in favour, please show. Against? And abstentions. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3 on the agenda, the action list, which is on page 19. One item was listed, which tells us that the planning manager has confirmed the letter is being worked on. What would be said on that? I don't think so. Moving on then to item 4, public contributions. There are no public contributions recorded. Item 5, declarations of interest. Well, members, I know you all know the score there. Please declare anything that you feel is appropriate. Item 6, agreement of agenda items part 1 and 2. There are no part 2 minutes. Item 7, consider correspondence brought forward by the chair. I personally haven't got anything this time. Councillor James, I believe you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to bring you up to speed a little bit on the Levelling Up Partnership. I've done it in a form of bullet points, because I do stay off the points sometimes. So I'll go through the thing, but basically.
Sorry, Ken, can you just tilt that mic down so he's a bit closer to you then?
Right, okay. Is that better?
You're gonna be right up close to it apparently.
I don't know what, right, okay. I can't get much closer without actually using it. Right, okay. I'll deliver it as bullet points and I can add a few comments on the way. As you know, I want to give the members a briefing on the update of the meeting I had with the Levelling Up Minister, or we had. Levelling Up Minister Jacob Young MP with our own MP and the Chief Exec last Wednesday afternoon, October the 25th, right? The members already know our previous scheduled meeting had been cancelled, which is why the up-to-date is within urgent matters rather than a report on the agenda. A more detailed report will be prepared for the next full council meeting in December. This was the first meeting of the Levelling Up with the Levelling Up Minister since Torridge was as an area designated to work in partnership with the government on this policy initiative, which has been given to 19 other areas in addition to Torridge, and with a £400 million allocated to this area of work. This wasn't a formal start of the Levelling Up Partnership. The Minister made it quite clear that that will commence in line with the timetable provided previously to TDC, which is March 24. And there will be no opportunity to bring it forward from that date. So that is what the rules are, that's what we will have to comply with. The process following the official launch in March 24 will involve a number of officials from the LUP, the Levelling Up Partnership team, undertaking a deep dive at Torridge, analysing data and information about TDC and considering the form and format of interventions that would level up TDC. The LUP team, the Levelling Up Partnership, will also be meeting and discussing with key stakeholders from various sectors and organisations, i.e. businesses, agriculture, education, and others to understand from the wider perspective views of what will level up TDC. In advance of this phase, the LUP, our officers team, will be with the LUP, our officers will be collating data, evidence and information and constructing a TDC case story around what makes Torridge what it is, which is, and that will include the good and the challenges, what the vision is for the area, and that is important that we have an end vision of where we're going, not just wish list on the way, and in order to make TDC even better, great place to live, work and visit. Our officers will also consolidate with the other strategic place documents that pull together, and we will be working to shaping TDC, such as with Northern Devon Economic Strategy and our own strategy that we've been putting together recently as a council. In terms of more specific project development phases, the Minister made it clear that any specific projects must be data-led and clearly evidence the impact of improving the specific levels of the matrices that put TDC in this position in the first place, i.e. the MVP level 3, the low number we have, health and life expectancy, medium gross weekly pay, and GVA per hour worked. This is not an opportunity to produce a wish list of projects, as it will need to be properly evidenced how they achieve fundamental changes in the challenges faced by our residents and our community. This is a significant amount of work that needs to be done over the coming months and beyond if TDC are to grasp what might be a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The council needs to concentrate on this while also maintaining focus on delivering our other major projects, the operational services and the Appledore Innovation Centre. As mentioned earlier, know that the process has started to take shape. We will get a much clearer picture of understanding, and of that I will bring more details to the next full council meeting. Now, what I can say is that I felt we had a very warm, receptive meeting, but it was made very clear the rules that I've just laid out to you, how it will be. It won't necessarily be how some people wish it would be, but it will be. The starting date will not be till next March when it will be launched. We were encouraged in so much as the money available and when it might start becoming available. But it's been made clear to us, it will be based on data, evidence, and the end goal of a vision of a brighter and better future for our residents within College. So on that point, I just thank you for listening to me. I hope it makes sense. It is a great opportunity. Our officers have been having an enormous amount of work to do. And the one thing I would say is that we need to consider that as members and how we go forward. To lose out on this amount of money would be criminal if our officers are tied up with other stuff. So I'm asking you as leader that we consider that we look at the vision, and we've got various things doing that. We have the economic strategy, we have a skills board, we have Devon Northern Futures, we have a whole, and they were quite interested in the Devon Northern Futures, which is basically a sort of a pattern, which we're doing ourselves with North Devon and Petrock. It's a bit of a pattern of how the Levelling Up board will look forward using the experts that we have available. So it won't be just College. There will be a lot of work in getting evidence from other people. The board will consist of, as I said, quite a lot of outside experts that will be looking at whether what we're putting forward will actually make a solid contribution to the future of College. So I'm hoping that we will be able to bring forward more details. At the moment, you know as much as I do, and I think that's the right way we do it, which is why I've asked with the chief exec to bring this forward tonight, because by the time we get to it in December, hopefully we will have more information, and you might have more questions when we do address it again. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Councillor James. Before we move on to the next item, gentlemen at the back, member of the public, we've got some seating over here, sir. If you'd like to come and join us, just over the other side of the room.
Yeah, maybe was a bit
Okay, the next item on the agenda, agenda item 8, is a presentation from local artist Sandy Brown. So if you'd like to come up to the stand, Sandy, you can, 10 minutes will start with the time when she starts speaking. I'll say 10 minutes, but we've got a little bit of leeway, so 9.5 will be fine.
Thank you. Well,
Can I ask you to speak into the microphone?
It's an honour to be asked to speak to you today. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'd like to thank the Reverend Ian Lovett and the Reverend John Cavosso for coming along and offering their moral support to the project that I'm about to offer you a very exciting opportunity to acquire something which I think will tick a lot of boxes for you. If you don't know me, my name is Sandy Brown. I am an artist in clay and colour. I live in Appledore, and I use Devon clay. I've been working in clay for over 50 years. I have been described thus: Sandy Brown is internationally known as an influential figure in European and world ceramics. Gabby Dewald, a writer on ceramics in Germany, wrote this in the international ceramics magazine called Ceramic. Today, It is hard to imagine the European ceramic scene without her. She is famous for her spontaneous, passionate use of clay and colours. Sandy Brown's catalytic, liberating influence on European ceramics must not be underestimated. I have been invited to have solo exhibitions of my work in the USA, in Australia, Germany, and South Africa and China. I have been invited to present at conferences worldwide in ceramics conference. Over 46 museums worldwide have bought examples of my work to hold in their permanent collections. So an example of my work, this is what I'm known for. This is one image of my work. I'm known for being one of the pioneers in using colourful glazes in contemporary ceramics. It's one of the things I was known for initially. So thank you. We'll have the next image. And this is an example of a throne, a chair that I made that is now in the permanent collection of the Frankfurt Museum of Applied Arts. They bought it from a solo exhibition I had in Germany a few years ago. Next image, please. And this is an example of a square platter of mine, which is in the permanent collection of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Okay. And this is a ceramics platter, which was sold from an exhibition in Germany a few years ago. It gives you an idea of one of the things I do. Next image. I also do large-scale sculptures. This is on the continent of Europe in a architect's collection. Yeah. And this is this was in Rufford, ruined abbey at Rufford in Nottinghamshire. And this is in China. I was one of 10 British artists selected to represent Britain in a big international conference in China and to make some new work for a brand new museum in China. And this is the work that they chose to stay there, which is now in their permanent collection. And this is in a private collection. This is a sculpture that I was commissioned by St Austell to make for its town centre last year. It is St Austell is the China clay hub of the UK and the world, and they wanted to celebrate their clay culture. So I made an earth goddess. She is in fact the tallest ceramic sculpture in the world, and has been credited with enhancing and increasing visitor numbers to St Austell and to increasing tourist traffic and visitors and business generally. Thank you. And this is the project that I'm here to talk about with you. This is Temple. This was commissioned initially for a temporary exhibition by Sotheby's, for a temporary exhibition at Chatsworth House, an exhibition of contemporary monumental sculpture. And I was the only ceramics person invited, alongside Henry Moore, Barbara Hepworth, Anthony Gormley, all the biggest names in British ceramics that there have ever been. And so it is a temple. Next image. It is, yeah, next image. Ah, yes, now, Ian Lovett. Ian, look, there's your, Ian.
Yes.
The Reverend Ian Lovett actually is responsible. He's probably the only vicar who did a ceramics degree, and he was responsible for the gold leaf at the top of the finial, at the top of the temple. So thank you for doing that, Ian.
Pleasure.
Yes, so, and this is inside the temple. It is a space. It has a serious intent. It's a space for contemporary ritual and ceremony and reflection. And so inside, all of the tiles were handmade in Appledore in my studio, and I made and painted them all. And there are the seats inside the square cubes. The seats, the round ball is an object of contemplation. And you will see that one of the ways my work has also grown out of, although you may not realise it, to look at, has actually grown out of the North Devon traditional ceramics earthenware tradition of using coloured slips and coloured clays over each other. This is one of my favourite tools. It's a tool which you have to squirt one colour over another colour. It's a traditional North Devon tool called a slip trainer. It's a potter's tool, and North Devon traditional ceramics using in the harvest jugs, which are in the Burton Art Gallery, some of the best ceramics made in the UK. The best traditional ceramics were made here. The Biddeford harvest jugs are the best ceramics and traditional ceramics made in the UK. They're full of life. And I was inspired by them as a child. It was the first gallery that I ever came to. So I've incorporated my way of using colour freely and freshly inside the temple and outside. Thank you. And this is inside the temple looking up into the dome. There are skylights in the temple. There's coloured glass in the skylight made by a colleague of mine who is a well-known glass artist. He was a director. He was here at Dartington Glass for many years. He's now director of Salviati Glass in Venice. He teaches at the Royal College of Art, and he developed a completely new method of fusing two colours of glass together to make the coloured roof tiles that allow the coloured glass panels to allow the coloured light to come into the temple inside, and it's beautiful. That's in the studio painting. This is how it looks before it goes in the kiln. The colours look completely different before they go in the kiln. It's geological chemistry making the glazes. And so this is the infrastructure of the temple. It has a wooden infrastructure, and the coloured tiles are all screwed onto the so it's very stable. It's as strong and as weatherproof as any house will be, in fact, if not more so, because they're all glazed. I mean, house roof tiles aren't glazed, bricks aren't glazed, but these are. So they're highly weatherproof. At Chatsworth, it was outside for 3 years in heavy weather and storm, and it's fine. So that gives you an idea of the, yes. So there we are, that is Temple. And Richard Cork, who is a Times art critic, describes Temple as an influential work that defies conventional notions of sculpture or architecture. Its commanding presence, resembling an exquisite building with flamboyant columns and arches, immediately captivates the discerning eye. It is a sacred sanctuary. And as more and more increasingly, fewer and fewer of us our culture is, the number of Christians is declining. The number of Christian marriages that there were a few years ago in Devon were 4,500 weddings, of which only 1,500 were religious ceremonies. The other 3/4 were not religious ceremonies. And so increasing, and memorials, after crematoriums, after if you are not religious, where do you have your sacred ceremonies and rituals? We don't have places for those people to have their ceremonies in a place which is spiritually uplifting. This is a unique work of art. There is nothing like this anywhere in the world. Biddeford could be leading the way in showing. I actually think that all district councils nationwide should have a space like this to offer to people of non-denominational people who wish to have ceremonies and rituals. You provide registry offices, you provide crematoria. We need to provide non-denominational spaces which are spiritually uplifting for rituals like this. Otherwise, our culture and our heritage is in danger of declining and dying. Jeremy Vine, the BBC broadcaster, is a big fan of my work. He's made a film of Temple, and he's placed it, yes, so, there we go. I think that's.
Thank you, Sandy. That's nearly 15 minutes, and I just wanted, to give a few minutes for members to ask any questions. So, so what's the actual plan here then? Is it, you say for Orange District Council to acquire it? I mean, is it, and obviously it comes with cost.
It does, yes, it does.
It's not a gift.
No, unfortunately, it can't be, no.
What you say in Victoria Park, any particular place in there where you think it would be sited? My own personal reservation is how durable it would be, not the weather. I'm not concerned about that. But you know what it's like when you put a building up in a lot of public places nowadays. I would hate to see the aftermath of anything happening to that one, after some damage, some hooligans or whatever, any.
Yes, it would need to be protected, and so my suggestion is that it could have some very tall railings around it. Right opposite my house, I live right opposite the Richmond Dock in Appledore,
Yeah.
and there's some large tall railings around there. Richmond Dock has been absolutely safe and secure, and the railings, the Richmond Dock railings are black, but I mean the railings around the temple could be tall. They could be pale blue to coordinate.
So
with the
basically,
it could be with part of the work
It
of
would be
art.
fenced off then until such a time as it's opened up for anyone to actually visit it.
That's
So
right. That's
that
right.
the public wouldn't be able to just walk in and walk out.
No, exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly, yes. And it could be done, if the Burton Art Gallery were sort of interested in sort of incorporating, it could be used as an extra space for the Burton Art Gallery. That was one suggestion one of the people at the Burton made. And so, that's another way of making use of it. It could make money for Torridge as well by renting it out for weddings and memorials.
Anyone else got any questions? Anyone? Yes,
Chair,
Chair.
can I ask, Sandy, you haven't mentioned costs.
Right.
What are we talking about in the way of, funding for this, or it's not going to be donated free of charge to us, is it?
No, unfortunately not,
Even for
no.
a period of time, maybe until we know whether or not we can adopt it and keep it or pay for it over a certain time. Could you mention something about costs? Thank you.
Well, it was, when it was exhibited at Chatsworth, it was independently valued by two arts professionals, unknown to each other. They independently valued it at 1 million each. They both said that. Somebody came into my studio last week, because it's now installed in my studio, so you can come along and see it. I invite you all to my studio in Appledore to come and see it. You can go inside, and Peter Christie has been, and a few others have been, and Peter Hames, and I'd be very happy to show you. And somebody who came last week, this art expert who's well known in the art dealing work, he valued it at 2 million actually. Now I'm not asking anything like that. I'm asking, all I need to do is cover my costs. It's cost me a lot of money to make it and to provide everything. So I'm asking for 350,000 for the temple. And then there would be the cost of the railings, which I would, and I would do as much as I could to help to make it possible. I would certainly be willing to involve young people in the process. I would be willing to invite schools and do talks in the temple and teach them about the culture that we have here, as well as the possible rituals that there are.
Yeah.
And my experience is that young people really get contemporary art, and it makes them feel proud of the place they're from.
Thank you, Sandy, for that lovely presentation. So obviously we can't make a decision here tonight, so it'll be referred to the relevant committee to discuss and back to full council with some kind of recommendation, I would imagine.
There's one other thing I would say about the funding is that I don't know, there's you were talking about the Levelling Up Fund earlier. There's also, I was looking at the criteria for the Heritage Lottery Fund, and because this is a project that actually seeks to preserve our cultural heritage of rituals and ceremonies, that is a possibility. And also, just one other thing, the reason that the Reverend Ian Lovett and the Reverend John Carbosso are both here in support of this project is they would very much like to be celebrants and to perform rituals inside the temple when it's established and part of life here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much, Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then to item 9, housing assistance policy for better care fund, ages 20 to 84. Phil Gilbert is going to do the presentation. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, councillors. Unfortunately, I don't have any beautiful pictures for mine. So this is a review and update of the council's housing assistance policy for the Better Care Fund. Council is obliged to fund, mandatory disabled facilities grants in line with the Housing Grants Construction and Regeneration Act 1996. The grants provide for adaptations to allow people to stay independent in their homes. So the grants are maximum £30,000 and that is centrally set by government. The council receives annual ring-fenced funding from the Better Care Fund for this purpose, and a summary of the budget and spend is contained in your notes on page 21. In addition to the disabled facilities grant and mandatory grant, the council can provide discretionary assistance, which is allowed by the Regulatory Reform Housing Assistance Order 2002. In order to offer the discretionary assistance, the council is required to adopt and publish a policy, which is this policy. Any discretionary assistance funded by the Better Care Fund needs to work towards the Devon Better Care Fund priorities, and these are outlined in section 2 of the policy on page 34 of your notes. We target areas by directing funding and extending the disabled facilities grant to a wider group by providing top-up funding to ensure that we can undertake larger adaptations where needed, and to offer grant funding and low-cost loans for home improvements for homeowners. So this is just an update to the existing policy. The summary of the assistance being offered and the policy changes is contained in your notes on pages 23 and 24. Councillor Hackett, the lead member, has been consulted and is happy to support this policy. And we're seeking adoption by the council for the revised policy. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
It's not like the beginning of this report, it's already been approved. It says right at the beginning on page 25,
Oh,
it has been approved already. Obviously, I think that's the last person
It-
that goes away.
it does.
So I didn't see it on the minutes, but it's already approved for introduction on December 2023. Why is it being now?
Sorry. I put that in there as the draft for this evening in the anticipation of. So apologies. That's my fault for miscommunication. So that was all blanked out with squares. So I've just put it as today's date.
It's dangerous to say something that's approved already.
Apologies for that. Yeah.
Councillor Lavelle.
Just a matter on the figures on page 21. The budget and the spend is relatively consistently underspent. Is that because applications were less than expected, or is that, and what happens to the leftover money?
So good question. The leftover money, we have an agreement. So the Better Care Fund is allocated to Devon County Council locally, and Devon County then in agreement with the districts distribute the Better Care Fund money in accordance with the formula that they've worked out, which looks at the previous year's spend. So it looks at the last 3 years spend usually. So any underspend, what we tend to do is we tend to keep any underspend, and then that will be taken into account in the next formula when they allocate the funds. So if you note, the next year's money is always quite high, even though our allocation from government, our actual allocation is never really more than £1 million, but we always end up with more than £1 million in budget. because we carry that over effectively.
Okay, councillor Brenton, you wanted to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so for the question of the finances, is there something wrong with our policy or communication that we have any understanding? We should not have any understanding, bearing in mind the demographic of our area, the elderly population. I mean, we had a scheme many years ago, I can recall, you know, our budget used to be gone by about 6 months into the financial year. You know, people were queuing up for it and it went. So we should never, ever have a underspend on this, surely, to this. So is there something wrong with our communications with the people, agencies and all the rest of it who could get access to this, or why is that?
Yeah, sorry, and you asked about the underspend as well, apologies. So the underspend, we rely on referrals from occupational therapists at Devon County Council. So any disabled facilities grant that we offer has to be accompanied or starts with a referral from an occupational therapist. And we have very little influence over how many referrals we receive. So what we can do and what we have done in the past is we go out to GP surgeries, for example, and raise awareness of this. I was just discussing today, in fact, potential of putting some marketing for this into like council tax mailers, things like that, to try and raise awareness. So you're right to say it. But this is another part of the discretionary funding in the policy, is we need to target that discretionary funding so that, again, we don't get any underspend. We're spending our allocation on the things that matter to us. So this has been drafted with those priorities in mind to try and target this funding so that we don't get any underspend. But it's about fine tuning it really and making sure that every year when we run it's just looking at where that, you know, where we could potentially spend a bit more against some of our priorities.
Can I just come back, Chair, on that?
Yes, councillor
Can
Brenton.
we start with surgeries, for example? They all have these sort of rolling screens now where they're sitting there waiting, various topics come up on there. Perhaps we could slot into those so that people could do it, because it does mention in their agents as well. That's another one where perhaps some of the estate agents there, you know, people are buying the downsides or whatever, and they can have adaptions and all that type of thing. So, you know, there is a potential there, I think, to getting out into the public more than we're doing in London.
Yeah, I've got a few speakers, but can I just bring Stacey Dorian second?
Just because the other thing to consider is this is means tested as well, so depending upon your income and your disposable assets, you might not qualify. The other difficulty with it is if you qualify for a mandatory DFG, we have to provide that. So we've always got a balancing act with these budgets, because if we spend all of our allocation and then somebody applies for a DFG under the mandatory criteria, we're obliged to fund that. So especially with council budgets are at the moment, we've got to be really careful about dragging it out. So it's not free money to everybody. There are criteria, and it is usually a means tested criteria.
I've got councillor Lavelle first and then councillor Craig, and I've had a couple of this side afterwards. Yes, councillor Lavelle.
Just going back to what you're saying about you've got to keep something in reserve. I mean, you're talking about sort of the odd 300,000 that are underspend, which if the maximum grant is 30,000 is an awful lot of emergency you're keeping in reserves. And can I ask how many people get turned down and what the reasons are for doing that? And surely, and does it, maybe not understanding it properly, for which I apologise, but when you said, excuse me, there's an underspend, and then, so does that next year, do they say that you had that in reserve and therefore what they give you, like if you had 300,000 that you didn't spend this year, does that mean next year's allocation is like 1 million, but you only get 700,000 because you didn't spend the 300,000? See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Not necessarily is the answer to the last part. They look at Devon as a whole. So we're putting as Devon as a whole, and it's worth probably stating at this point that the majority of districts run at an underspend on their better care fund. It's not unusual to run at an underspend.
Go on, councillor Lavelle. Yeah.
Sorry, just what's the benefit in running an underspend? Why not get the help out there to the people that need it? Because you hear about people who have all the time, don't understand. Sorry.
There's no benefit to running an underspend as such. It's just that if we don't get the referrals, we can't we can't spend the money, that's, you know, so.
So are there a lot of applications that get disqualified?
Not,
Or do you just not get the application?
not huge numbers, no, we just don't get that many applications. I mean, when I say we don't get that many applications, we do between 50 and 100 adaptations per year of people's
That's great,
properties.
I mean, I think it's a wonderful.
So we
service.
do-
I'm not
we do a lot of
knocking
good
the
work.
service, I'm really pleased, I just like to keep order, I like the money
Yeah.
spent.
Well,
Money spent, let's spend it.
hopefully councillor Brenton's suggestion may well increase that uptake. And we've got councillor Craig next.
That was just kind of sort of follow on from Councillor Brenton. Actually, I think it's the social prescribers that you really need to be dealing with, because they are the people that deal with those that fall between the money of the social services and healthcare now. It is the social prescribers that deal with those people that don't fit in to the normal boxes. So I would have thought that they would be a priority really in order to get people's homes adapted so that they can maintain their life.
Sorry, before I get to you, councillor Brenton, I had hands at the back. Councillor Hackett first, I think was, and then councillor Long.
Well, I was going to come in to move the recommendation, but if there are, I think we can have a discussion that if anybody else wishes to speak first.
Councillor Long first, and then councillor Brenton. and
Yeah,
then-
perhaps I have to declare an interest, because 3 months ago I did have a stair lift fitted in my farmhouse, and I knew nothing about this grant, and the company that I use for the stair lift in Crediton just said to me, have you applied for a grant? So I said, no, I know nothing about it, and they gave me the contact information.
Councillor Brenton.
Right, fine. This is a very broad range of grants from all sorts of things, from top-up grants to stair-lift grants, we've done a lot, and healthy homes. Surely we're missing a trick here. We need to upgrade our expertise on this, because this surely will feed into the levelling up application. It may not be quite part of the strictures that Jeff Watts and Deborah Young are requiring, but on the other hand, additional evidence showing that we have a population, and we know we do, who live in substandard housing and who are low income and who are not very healthy in many cases, will all add additions to the application for our levelling up funding. And yet at the same time, you look at these statistics and it looks as if there's no need or not that much need for it. Well, that's very contradictory, and it really doesn't help us with our levelling up campaign. So I really do think we need to make much more effort to get much better take up of all these broad grants that definitely this community needs far more than we're given.
Right, councillor Lavelle, that's the last one, then I'm going to go to the vote now.
Sorry, I just wonder, what are my constituents in desperate need of appropriate housing for is living with her mother in a upstairs and downstairs, because mother not being able to go upstairs anymore, and there's a real limit on appropriate housing, bungalows or whatever are available, and you know, the meeting and getting into a real price. In that situation, for example, would those people, would the council or the housing person go to them and say, here's a grant for £30,000, put a stair lift in, so that the pressure on you needing to move house is taken away? If they come off the housing list, would that happen automatically? And if not, why not?
So in circumstances such as that, there's two things to consider. One, they would need an occupational therapy referral from Devon County. So it wouldn't, that's not up to us.
But would you advise them to get one?
Yes, we would, absolutely. If we came into contact with someone like that, we'd absolutely do that. Two, it is a means tested grant, as Stacey said, so we would need to do a test of resources. Although one of the things we have done in this policy, I should state, to try and address some of the underspend and make things a bit fairer across the board, is to take the first £10,000 of any contribution out of play. So the policy states that we will pay the first £10,000 of any contribution. So that should bring a few more people into grant funding rather than having to pay a contribution.
That sounds like good. Right, it's been proposed by councillor Hackett. We've got a seconder for it. Councillor Harding, all in favour, please show if you adopt this policy. unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 10 is to receive the report from the head of legal and governance monitoring officer. This is the care leavers discount policy.
Yeah, so good evening, members. So I last presented this to full council on the 4th of September, when it was agreed in principle that Torridge would offer an exemption on their council tax for care leavers in the Devon area. And that was subject to a full policy and further detail coming forward to full council, which is what I'm presenting tonight. So I know there's been various meetings ongoing with the Devon authorities, with Devon County, with the chief execs, with the section 151 officers and Revs and BEMS officers about how best to achieve this. The predominant principle behind this is to give care leavers within the Devon area a cushion when they leave care, and a form of protection to kind of ease them into full-time life up until the age of 25. So the proposal is that Torridge, alongside other Devon authorities, grant 100% exemption on their council tax up until the age of 25. Whereby thereafter that exemption would no longer apply. The easiest way for Torridge to achieve this is through the council tax reduction scheme and the exceptional hardship policy. Just by way of reference, for the year 23-24, that total amount for care leavers within the Torridge area would amount to just over £8,000. And Torridge's contribution to that, so what Torridge would be funding would be £650. Obviously, financial years going forward, I can't confirm how many care leavers will be in the area, but that's the proposal, that we award 100% exemption up until they're 25. Happy to take any questions.
Are you moving this?
I'll move that.
I'll second it. All in favour, please show. Unanimous.
That's unanimous,
Thank you very
Chair.
much. Yeah, item 11, adoption of the CCTV policy, pages 103 to 112. What were you, Stacey?
So again, members, this should be very, very brief. It's just to introduce a CCTV policy for Torridge that we can publish on our website so that the public are clear about where Torridge have our CCTV cameras, our reasons for having CCTV, how we use that data, how we process, how we erase the data, for example, and how the public can approach us if they need requests from that CCTV. So it gives our staff and the public a clear policy by which we use, process, delete, and may, in certain instances, release that data, usually for crime and protection purposes. Again, happy to take any questions.
Currently, we don't have a policy in place, so I'm quite happy to move this. A second.
Sorry, Chair, can I just add, can members just, if we have other sites or need to remove CCTV, can they just allow officers to do that? Because sometimes we bring new CCTV online, and I'm aware that we've got our operational centre coming forward, so that will no doubt need CCTV as well. So would they allow that officers to make that amendment with addition or removal of sites should we need to?
I think that is very important that officers have got the freedom to be able to do that rather than coming back to committee each time. Councillor Smith, did you want to speak?
I would just like to second the.
Okay. Councillor Brenton?
I just wanted to ask the Chair, Stacey, do we use facial identification in our CCTV? Because there's a lot of controversy about it.
No.
I think we need to stuff.
No, don't.
You don't,
No.
that's fine, thank you.
Okay, well, it's been proposed and been seconded. So all in favour, please show. Unanimous.
Unanimous,
Thank you.
Chair.
Okay, item 12, cycle of committee meetings, pages 113, 115, and the chief executive is going to present it.
Chair, I don't think it's any need to prepare a presentation to. It's to schedule the committee meetings for the next year, 24-25. happy to answer any questions if there are any, but it's just there for members to approve.
Well, I'll move that from the chair. Was someone, Councillor Harding, seconded that, all in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Unanimous again, huh? You're well, thank you. Item 13, to answer questions submitted under procedural rule A9. Councillor Andy Brendan, do you need me to stop? One question to,
Thank you very much, Chair. Right, I've got the response to that, which is basically an amazing thing. There's no cost whatsoever, even though I think the Councillor Bushby himself brought forward a notice of motion, which I presume went to CNR, that we actually have installed here microphones for members. Is that not going to take place now? Because that's why I was asking the question. So there's not going to be any cost at these installation these microphones up here then?
well, clearly there's not going to be any microphones installed, not 36 of them anyway, from what I can gather.
Right, well, obviously, I wasn't aware of that, I just wanted to know that. Of course, while I was asking this question, I also put in another couple of questions and was told that I'm not allowed to do that, even though standing orders do say, and they use the indefinite article, a question. It didn't say the question, the definite article. So clearly that's open to interpretation. That still stands in the standing orders I've just looked at tonight. That actually a question does not imply only one question. So I think that's a bit of an issue because I did have two more important questions I wanted to ask, and they have been censored at this meeting. Obviously, I'll bring them up to the next meeting and the one after that. But the point I'm making is that isn't distinct. It's an indefinite article, and that means it implies a question. It doesn't imply 7 questions, 1 question. And if it is only 1 question, it should be in the standing orders, so that there's no confusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Okay, moving on to item 14, petitions. We don't have any petitions. So item 15, notices of motion. We've got 4 notices of motions. And the first one, I believe, is Councillor Christie.
Oh, thank you. Got to start with an apology to my fellow members of the planning committee who have heard me go on about this quite a few times. I've got to the point where I've really lost patience. Every planning application we get, whether it's huge estates or very small ones in villages, South West Water, they're a statutory consultee, they come back, has no objection. And you think, oh, that's all right then. But of course it isn't, because we know there are major problems with South West Water in terms of spills. 2022 in Bideford, Riverbank, there were 24 spills. I'm sure our officers are very aware of it. Quite often when I go down Riverbank, the smell is quite appalling. Buckley in Northern, 31 spills. It added up, if you add it up, it came to 17 days of spills. Amersham, which is our main sewage treatment plant for the whole area for Barnstable and Bideford, had 144 spills. Now they aren't just around Bideford and Northern, Weir Gifford, 117. That lasted a total of 45 days. Torrington, 25 spills, the equivalent of 13 days. All these figures are online, you can look at them. And it really annoys me when you see South West Water saying, oh no, we have no objection to this. Why not? Because every house that's connected up has to pay South West Water. They are a monopoly. All right, they'll take the money, but they don't seem to be doing what they should be doing in tackling our infrastructure. A little bit of history here. I actually joined the council I became a councillor many years ago because of the sewage embargo in Bideford. Now, many of you won't remember this, but South West Water could not handle any more sewage from any new houses. So the government stepped in and slapped a sewage embargo on Bideford, which said you cannot build any new houses. And that lasted the late 70s, went on well into the 80s. And yet now, you think, wait a minute, has anything changed? South West Water clearly cannot handle the sewage. And yet here we are being told, well, no problems, we passed that state. This is why my motion is before you today. I'm asking two things, you can see what they are. Firstly, how can South West Water justify their very bland statement that comes up every time? But secondly, a slightly revolutionary one, this, because I did suggest at the planning committee some time ago that we shouldn't vote through any new estates until South West Water can sort out the problems. Unfortunately, I can't see that holding much water. I can see South West Water challenging that and winning. However, I would like the government to look at removing South West Water from the list of statutory consultees. And we going for an independent view. Because if you look at my last line there, it says they will look at new developments, water availability. We've had a drought in this area in summer. All right, we're now having floods, but South West Water can't seem to balance that at the moment. There's no new reservoirs online or anything. Sewage capacity, we all know that they can't handle sewage capacity. So my motion is there in front of you. I would ask for a seconder and ask you to support. Thank you.
I'm happy to second that for the chair. Because I don't suppose there's many people here that's going to argue against the sentiment of what you just said. Right. Councillor Locke?
Yeah, can I just say, I utterly agree with Councillor Christie. He said it's so frustrating on Plans Committee, but could we not ask for a representative of South West Water to come and talk either to the whole council or specifically to the Plans Committee, like we have with Highways and Devon County Education Authority, to see if we can get them to explain face to face to us? Because I don't think going out to outside bodies will perhaps better the situation, because we would have to pay them, and we always argue about expenses from consultees. But I would like a representative of South West Water to come and speak to us before we issue all these other bits.
Very briefly, if you would please.
Yes, we have had representatives from South West Water come up before. They won't tell us anything. You ask some figures, you know, what's the carrying capacity of Amersham sewage plant? They won't tell you. And because they're now a private company, you can't even put in a freedom of information either.
Yeah. Councillor Brenton, first of all.
Well, I totally agree with Councillor Christie and Councillor Locke over this. You know, this is really long, it's been a long time since we needed to do this sort of thing. We should have done it years ago. There's a big development going on up beyond Atlantic Village, or the Affinity is now known. And there's clearly a great need there for us to be really careful and scrupulous about the reserve matters for that particular development. And it involved loads of drainage and sewage requirements. And at the moment, South West Water's behaviour is scandalous. We all know that. They don't carry out their legal responsibilities. They're continually breaking the law with their effluent and overflows. And it's no good Councillor Locke saying, oh, let's see if we can get them to speak to us. Believe me, we've had them on before when we had the embargo, the sewage embargo, and the problems we had with trying to get a decent sewage outlet and not put sewage into the River Torres. And they just prevaricate and fob you off with their 1984 type speak. We really need to make sure that we have an independent, honest assessment of our sewage needs in this area. We need somebody with integrity and who doesn't speak out of money alone. The profit is then not their sole motive for our community. We need somebody and some organisation that knows that the welfare of our people and our rivers and our sea is just as important as making money.
Yeah, Councillor Newton, and then Councillor Brenton, and then we're going to go to them.
Yeah, I would fully support, councillor Christie's line. Could I just suggest, though, that at the risk of inflicting, some additional work on planning staff, that we do a simple exercise to extract from, say, over a period of time, the last 3 years or last 5 years, on all applications of, say, 5 units or greater, we actually extract the consultation response from South West Water, because I think that we actually need to be able to prove to other people that the response is actually the same template coming each time. And all it does, it tells you they've got no problem, and that as long as you join their main with a smaller pipe than the one they've got, they're fine, crack on. So, but that would be useful to actually show people, demonstrate to people actually what they're saying. Secondly, independent and all of that, all very good. If it's not legally enforceable, it's really not worth the money spending on it.
Councillor Branson, then we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Well, like Councillor Christie, I'll start off with politics through sewage. Still in it. Not good. The point is, I think we should be getting Ofwat here because, as Councillor Christie pointed out, South West Water gives the usual run around on that one. But Ofwat are supposed to be the ones that are regulating and monitoring, but they don't. In the years I was on Water Voice, which was at that time the sort of watchdog for South West Water, which the government got rid of because it was probably too effective, certainly our chairman was, then we used to think then that Ofwat, what on earth are they doing? They've got teeth, they don't use it. That's the people shove it. It's a quango, of course. We know how loaded they are. And this Ofwat is loaded. But we need to get them here to say, what are you doing about the spills, etc., in our rivers and seas? Thank you.
Well, perhaps Councillor Christie will take that on as a bit of a mission for further work. So it's been proposed. I've seconded it. Can I have a show of hands in support of this motion, please? Unanimous? No? Against? And abstentions?
One abstention.
Thank you. Right, the second notice of motion is Councillor Lavelle.
I raised this topic slightly before as a question. I'm new to it and I don't know how it all works. And I'm new to an iPad, so I can't make things bigger. But hopefully everybody's read this. And it's regarding the car parking charges for charity fundraising events on the quay at Bideford. When I'm suggesting that those charges be looked at, that when I asked the question, I was told that it's, that's the way it's always worked, but I don't think that's a really good reason to carry on doing, make it bigger good. Just because something's been happening for some years doesn't seem to be a good enough reason to carry on doing it. I firmly believe that the financial gains to the town of these charitable events are considerable and more benefit to the council than the car parking of the money that they'd raise on the quay itself. I firmly believe that the increase in Bideford in parking on a Sunday or Saturday, whichever day it is, in the other car parks, the Apple Market, the Longstay one, and at Kingsley, the other fee-paying car parks around the town, the roads and the high street and all the rest of it, the takings there are increased when events like these take place, and that more than compensates for the loss of parking being on a normal Sunday when no events are taking place. I think the good that these charitable events are doing, the funds that they raise for these good causes, I think it's very important. And I think it's something that we should really consider as a benefit to the community and to the town. It's a benefit to the traders in Bideford themselves. It brings people in. A lot of the charities that are doing these fundraising things, they're providing services that the council is probably struggling to afford to provide. I just think it would be, and if everybody says, no, we can't possibly do that, car parking charges are far too important, we need every penny that we can get, then I would suggest that rather than charge the car parking out at the highest possible rate, then the car parking is best at the cheapest possible rate for the day, rather than the most expensive, and so that should be taken into account.
Thank you, councillor Bell. I totally agree with the sentiment what you said, and I'd like to second that. If it goes through tonight, obviously it'll be referred to the budget working group, I would imagine, because obviously there's a financial implication here. So you've had the notice of motion, it's been seconded. Do you want to speak on it now, do you?
I was just going to ask, is there a considered view from Bideford Town Council? Because I would have thought that an agreed view, Councillor Christie, rather than independent.
You can.
Strange enough, this came up last Thursday at the Town Council, and I can assure you it was unanimously passed. I said, I did point out that we get 2 free days a year from Norwich for car parks, which we use. We hire the Bridge Street car park on 1 day a year. And I pointed out, even Bideford Town Council was being charged as though every space was full up all through the day. And so our town clerk is writing to Torridge, I don't know if the letter's arrived yet, asking about this and challenging it. So it was unanimous, so by Councillor Bushby can assure you as well.
Thank you. Councillor, yes. All right.
Thank you, Chair. I do understand the sentiment behind Councillor Lavell's motion. A question I had, this is probably relevant to other areas in Norwich, and the changing the rules will potentially affect all car parks, I assume, not just about Key Street. It's a subject that's come up in Holsworthy. I am aware that we get 2 days, I think, for town councils, which perhaps does make some allowance for events which are of high importance in an area. And I have some concerns that if we're too lenient, then it could be open to abuse. For an example, we have an event in Holsworthy which is a mixture of strong tradition and some affection, but also a private company who are probably there partly for commercial gain. So I think it's not quite as straightforward a subject as it may seem if you pull out individual events, charity-based events. I think the disappointment last year in Holsworthy was perhaps because the charges, although correct view and set in stone, the charges were possibly, and I might be wrong on this, the maximum that could have been charged for that day. And if there are the data is there to perhaps provide an average of the income for a particular day in the year, that would perhaps be a fair start in a changing policy. Thank you.
Didn't agree with you more, Councillor Blackman. So, did someone else with a hand up? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I think exactly the same thing applies to Great Torrington. We had the same, when the fair came into Barley Grove, they were being charged as if every space was being used all day, every day for the duration, and that is not the case. The amount of money that the fair generates to our town, they're very generous. They always give us a handout, they give us charitable money. We would hate to lose them, but they were very upset this year because the rates have gone up considerably more than if they were just being charged on a pro rata. So it wasn't even from what the manager of the fair was telling me. So I really do support this whole proposal.
Okay, well, Councillor Craigie.
Thank you. I want to wholeheartedly support this motion. I think it's important to recognise it does affect all car parks across the whole of Torridge. And there is obviously a difference between for-profit events and the charitable events. And it strikes me as utterly gross that the district council is attempting to profit out of charity events by charging them for the entire parking spaces, other than the number of spaces they would normally get revenue from. As councillor Lavelle has quite amply pointed out, there is a lot of additional revenue coming in at other car parks, because if wasn't used, people still park somewhere else. And not by and large, that is at other Torridge car parks. So I think we need to not only look at charging charities no more than the average occupancy of the car park, but look at how much extra revenue comes into district council car parks on those events, and allow that to reduce the charge even further, because that is essentially just putting Torridge back into the same position as if there was no event. It's not making Torridge district take a profit out of people who are volunteering their time and giving their money to approve of charity and social activities. For the good of the entire community, and I think we shouldn't be profiting out of that.
Perfect timing, 5 minutes up there, okay? 5 minutes are up, councillor Bright, unless you're gonna do it very, very quickly then.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted clarification from officers. Would this notice of motion be applying to all car parks or just the Bideford Quay one that's mentioned in the motion?
Just the one, just the Bideford Quay one, that's all that's up for grabs at the moment, that's all that's being discussed. Right, it's been proposed by councillor Bell, I've seconded it, kind of show of hands in support, please. Bearing in mind, this will go to the budget working group, presumably to be discussed further. Against? And abstentions? Okay, well, the next, well, that's clearly carried. The next notice of motion is councillor Craigie. To present the motion.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this motion. Also, I think it's important to separate the two elements of the motion, which is about the Bideford and Torridge Heritage Harbour, representing about 20 heritage groups now along the estuary that are kind of come together to work together to improve the offering of Torridge and enable us as an area to make more of our resource in heritage. We know that heritage tourism is the most stable and robust form of tourism. We know also it generates the most income of any type of tourism and is least seasonally affected. So that type of tourism is something that we really must support. And I think the first part of this motion is really about recognising the important and hard-working effort of those groups to come together and establish a group of workings which will hopefully work well with the regeneration boards both in Bideford and in Great Torrington, because of course the tidal part of Torridge runs from Appledore in the north all the way down to Great Torrington, and because of the Royal Canal, even to the south of Rosemore, the Royal Horticultural Gardens there. So actually the three largest conurbations in Torridge all have elements within the Torridge. And in fact, obviously this council is named after that river because of the significant importance that it has over the many years. And also in the second part really is about addressing the fact that we as a council obviously do have to come up with our place story, as they call it now in the Levelling Up Partnership. The place story is about us providing the data, the information about what makes Torridge unique, what makes our challenges unique, what we would like to see and what our vision is. And there is no better group placed to provide the information for the officers, and in fact do a large amount of the work that officers wouldn't be able to do in deep diving in many heritage aspects along the river. And so in fact getting these voluntary and charity groups on board is about saving the officers time and about essentially getting better value for money than hiring a consultant. Because quite frankly, there is no consultants out there that will have the depth of knowledge that our heritage organisations presently possess. And so I think it's really important that whatever this place story includes, if there are elements of heritage, that we get the heritage groups to provide that information and really beef up what is a unique place. And so I hope you support this.
Thank you. Councillor Craigie. Right, do you want to go into debate on this, all right? Councillor Smith, first of all.
I'm not sure if I should declare an interest because I'm chair of the Tarka Valley Railway. But I thoroughly support this whole thing. I love the idea of deep dive in the river. I'm not sure how the water quality would be affected by that, but no, I think this is such an important thing for our area, so I would wholeheartedly support it.
Councillor Annie Brenton.
I'd like to, as you haven't seconded it, Councillor Smith, I'd like to second this noted motion. I think that everything that Councillor Craigie says is so true. We don't take enough advantage of our river in the best possible way, and that is not to exploit it, but to celebrate it and to use it to help regenerate our town, particularly Bideford. It needs regeneration. It's becoming derelict. Businesses are withdrawing, and we have this valuable asset, this our wonderful river, that needs to be celebrated and used more to make sure that Bideford remains a beautiful town and attracts people for heritage tourism, among others. I think this is a splendid notice of motion, and I second it.
I thought Councillor Smith was doing that actually, but
I thought I had actually, but
did actually say second. You said support.
Sorry.
Splitting hairs, I know. Councillor Christie.
Yeah, just a simple question. I mean, I support it, but we heard from start of meeting, Ken James. Does this actually fit with the levelling up so far? Because it seems to be a project. Does it fit with what you said? Because as I understood it, you said that we're still in, the first steps. Do they marry up?
Is it a case or?
Councillor James is going to be in answer to your question, Councillor Christie, we don't know. And the only issue I would have, and I've spoken to Councillor Craigie about this, I'm quite happy to look at funding to do that. What I can't agree to is ring fencing £15,000 of money that goes to the levelling up fund. Now, if we do that, and it turns out this project doesn't fit the criteria, we've then got 15,000 out of 90 locked up. So you are gambling on not doing the levelling up project because you've locked up some money already. And that is just not acceptable, I'm afraid. I support everything that's said about the harbour board, or the harbour. We have got to start looking, because the boats aren't coming in. It is an asset. That's got to be looked at. And I've got no problems with that. My issue is, you want to lock up 15,000 of the levelling up fund when we don't know if that project will fit the criteria. Yes, it would be helpful to have criteria come forward, but until we know exactly where we're going, you can't lock up money, because if you do and it doesn't qualify, and I'm not saying it does or doesn't, what I'm saying is we have no idea at the moment, but you have locked up money that we would need, and you're putting any other project at risk. So I can't support it in its present form that you are locking up £15,000 of levelling up fund for one project that we don't know if it fits the criteria. I'm sorry, you just can't. Councillor Lavelle.
All I would say to Mr. James, is that the four matrix, the criteria are already known, and the way that this project or these suggestions fits in with this can be. I mean, I'm surprised that somebody hasn't from the, what do we call it? Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful. Of not all, but they could send that information to you to show you how that fits in with the four matrix are already established that the Levelling Up Fund projects have to conform to, or, you know, like well-being and all the rest of it, which the voluntary sector fits in because the well-being generated by the volunteering sector and the other criteria. I mean, I'm conscious that, you know, you don't go into great details, and I haven't got the great details with me, but it can be shown how they do fit in with those criteria, and those criteria are already declared for matrix, because that's part of the, it's not all, like, nobody knows anything at all about it. I think you'll agree those four matrix have already been declared, and it could easily be shown how what has been suggested fits them. So I mean, it's not talking about a project that wouldn't be anywhere near the, and I'm sorry, and Jeffrey Cox said that, I mean, whatever we think is Jeffrey Cox, has said that that what is being proposed and has been talking to them, that he was very positive that is set up and that would be all within the Levelling Up.
Right, well, I'm sorry, councillors, I can't take any more speakers because we're going way over the 5 minutes allocation on this. So it's being proposed and it's been. I'm sorry, councillor Haynes, we've gone over the 5 minute debate time. It's way over.
Do you want an amendment to this?
I can't have any more debate on it, I'm afraid.
Take out 15,000.
So it was proposed. And who seconded it?
I seconded it.
I'm just asking Councillor Brenton, it's Councillor Annie Brenton seconded it. Show of hands in support of Councillor Craigie's motion. Hands up, all those in support. Okay, and against? Abstentions? Okay, the numbers out. Want to read them out?
Yeah.
Can I add up nothing?
Yes, they do, Chair. It's 7 for, 15 against, and 8 abstentions.
Thank you. Okay, the last notice of motion this evening is from Councillor Brenton, David Brenton.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you have before you, councillors, the notice of motion there with the bullet points I've made. I'll start with the first one, the remoteness of this place. I mean, if you don't drive a car, you ain't coming here, are you? Especially if you're somebody with a low income or a pensioner who doesn't have a vehicle. This is not a user friendly site at all. The acoustics are poor. You know, some of the councillors I struggle to hear, which is a great pity because they've got my stage all right with me. I've got a big mouth, a big noise that comes out of it, and that you may think, well, that's an asset. No, it ain't, because back a few years ago, I was reported to the Standards Board for forceful delivery in the council chamber. Yes, it went to the Standards Board. You know, as I said to you before, I've been there many a time. Well, that was one of the more stupid things that was leveled against me, but you can't argue with that. And of course, there's no microphones here. If you heard earlier on, they're not arriving either. So we're going to have this situation where some councillors can be heard and others can't. Now, in a democracy, I think that every person's voice equals, and therefore you should all hear the argument, no matter who you are, whether you're soft-spoken or loud-spoken. You know, that's a democratic process. And of course, there's blind spots. You know, over there, yeah. Councillor Mackenzie sat over there. He can't see some of the councillors over here. Doesn't know who's there speaking, and that's a very important point, I think, when we're having debates. That members of the public should be able to see which councillor is saying what. And you could do that in town hall. There's no hiding away down there. You could see who's doing the speaking. And we should go back to the town hall on that reason alone, nothing else. Limited seating for the public. And we've got some seating because we don't get many public up here now. But you know, over the years, councillors, and a lot of years of that actually, some of the most significant decisions taken by this council were made because, right decisions that is, because the public were present in numbers. I'll give you a couple of examples. Long Division Walk car park, which is a very pleasant car park, I think you'll agree, quite well laid out and landscaped. I didn't fall out of the sky. That came because Torridge was in the process, a bit like Plymouth, well, it was many years ago, they went in with chainsaws early in the morning and were stopped. And they couldn't cut down the trees they wanted to. Do you know we had over 1,000 people from London Hill car park to the town hall because they were so incensed about what was happening. The people were in the town hall in their numbers, and the councillors obviously made the right decision. We had things like Torrington rendering plant, which was being licensed by Torridge time and time again, as they melted down the horrendous stuff that they were producing out there. And it was the people of Torrington who came in and actually you made sure that the council did the right decision and refused their license. Holsworthy swimming pool wasn't very popular. That wasn't going to get done, was it? Holsworthy people turned up and made sure that the councillors made the right decision. In a democracy, the people matter. They pay their rates and they want their elected representatives to make the right decision. They can't do it if they ain't there or can't get there very easily. The town hall is it's got the gravitas of democracy. And we should go back to the town hall. It's good enough for planning and various other committees. What's wrong with it? Full council. There's various objections before that. I mean, do you mean to tell me that over decades that the council couldn't operate because the town hall was not very good? Of course, there's nothing wrong with it at all. It's a far better place than this place. So I'll ask you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Brenton. Councillor?
Yeah, I'd like to second councillor Brenton.
Oh, please.
Notice of motion. I realise currently there are problems with the town hall with the electrics in there. But this is awful to be for a full council meeting for the reasons that councillor Brenton stated. And if we're not going to have a proper sound system in here, because these microphones and this system are pathetic. People on YouTube can't hear properly what's being said at all. But the town hall always, we've had 36 councillors in there over the years, no problem. It's a bit of a squeeze sometimes, and it was being reviewed how it could be set out. And there is room for the 36 councillors if they all do turn up at once, which doesn't happen very often, and officers as well. And it's worked very well. There's plenty of seating for the public, not very comfortable, and also, and it's accessible. There's a bus service from all of the district into Biddeford. It should be in there. We should have it in there. And whatever the issues are currently with the town hall, the sooner they're rectified and the full council goes back to that and the committees, the better. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Newton?
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't support councillor Burton's view. I would ask, when he made reference to a large number of people from Holsworthy coming to petition for their swimming pool, which was held, I wonder how many came on the bus. Seating, part of our seating nowadays, they're out there now on YouTube. Buses to the rural areas, your comment there was a very Biddeford-centric comment. This is a district council, and most of the people in this district do not live in this town, or indeed Northam next door. I also think it's important, this could be improved acoustically or microphones, but it's modern, it looks the part, it's fit for purpose. It's also important that we are seen not to be purely an extension of Biddeford Town Council. And actually, locationally, I think we benefit from being in a separate place. That's nothing against Bideford Town Council, but it's important that we are seen to be separate from a separate organisation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, councillor Brenton's motion has been proposed, it's been seconded, give a show of hands, all in favour, please. And against? An abstention? Want to read that one?
Chair, that's 12 for, 17 against and 1 abstention.
Okay, motion is clearly lost. Okay, councillors, that brings us to the end of the meeting at 3 minutes past 8. 3 minutes too late, never mind. Sorry.
If anybody has.
Oh, yes, yes.
Donations.
Hang on a second, hang on a second, please. Hold on.